Do you know, over the series of these conversations, there's one term that I kept hearing over and over again. And I thought I really wanted to understand what it actually means. And the term I'm talking about is healthy buildings. What does it actually mean? What are we talking about building health and why is it important? Well, today's guest is the exact right person to give us an answer to that question. We'll be talking about healthy buildings, why it's important, what does it mean, and how we can change that. And what does it look like on that status bar of health? How do we ensure that our buildings are more over this way? Welcome to Strata in Conversation. And we are live. Welcome to episode number 7 of Strata in Conversation, where we will talk all things, as I mentioned, healthy buildings. But before we do that, let me remind you that everyone logged on today has the opportunity to earn continual professional development points. They will be sent out and allocated to you. Please allow our team some time to do so, but I can assure you we are all over it and on top of it. We will get those out to you. Also, over in the chat, we have our specialty team ready to answer any queries, questions, start a conversation. If you hear something that you like or you wanted to probe further in our conversation today, please jump into the chat, engage, jump in there, and our team will be all over it. And for those unlucky enough that couldn't join us live today, never fear. All you need to do is scan the QR code that you can see on the screen or forward this to your colleague or someone in your team that you think will benefit from this conversation. And that QR code will take you to our YouTube channel, where we have all the episodes of Strata in Conversation available for your viewing pleasure whenever you like. But enough of the intros. Today, we are here to talk about health. Specifically, healthy buildings. When we talk about health, we need to see a doctor or a specialist, and I have the specialist for you. She is part of our senior specialty risk underwriting team, Miss Claire Burke. Claire,
Hi,
how you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to do this. I love talking about this stuff.
You have not been selected by accident. For everyone who doesn't know anything about Claire, she is an absolute gun when it comes to what we're about to talk about. And there isn't anyone that I would rather have talking about this. I think you embody that not only in this conversation, but even when you're walking around the office in Sydney. For everyone, Claire's based in Sydney. If you even just say hello, Claire automatically starts wanting to jump in and talk about this. I think that's your love language.
It is.
Would I be correct?
I'm a nerd. I'm happy.
I know. No. We're so happy to have you. How are things going in your space? How's everything going for you?
It's good. It's interesting. It's colourful. There's lots happening all the time. There's lots of, I guess, the unhealthy buildings that I see. So, yeah, there's lots to talk about today. Lots that I can share.
Well, that's what we're here to talk about. So let's dive in. And I had mentioned at the top that I am so fascinated about this term, healthy buildings. So I think for everyone that's on, I would love to just start at the beginning. And can you tell me, what do we actually mean? I think it's such a funny term. Like, what are we talking about when we say healthy buildings?
So healthy buildings are strata buildings where there is an engaged owners corporation actively maintaining the building. They've got really good levels in their sinking fund and admin funds to get repairs done as and when required. They they act on expert advice in reports that they obtain on their building when there's recommendations. They're not just sitting on the reports and not doing anything. There's good discipline with getting maintenance and meetings done. So attendance at AGMs, good relationships with their strata managers to really get their strata building working well. A big thing is consensus and alignment with an owners corporation means that there is a healthy building there. That's a really a positive one.
That is really, really interesting and not the response that I thought you were going to say. And I'll
Yeah,
come to that
okay.
in a moment.
Okay.
But when we say like healthy building, I thought you were going to say the doors open and there's no cracked pane and there's no chipped tiles and there's handrails that aren't. I thought you were going to talk about that. Not one of the things that you just mentioned had anything to do with the physical status of the building.
And it definitely that is part of it, but there's so much more that goes into making sure a building is healthy. And um, it's look, it's an owner's corporation's biggest financial asset. So there needs to be, I guess, love and care and effort and energy put into it to make sure that that value grows. And because a neglected building, it's going to erode that value for the owners. You know, if they want to go and resell and refinance with a neglected building that's been poorly maintained, it's not going to really go down well with them.
Yeah, right. So you talked about the owners corporation. Um, And is this a term that you think that they might be familiar with, being a healthy building? And why would they be interested? I think you kind of answered this, but if you could dive a bit deeper in that on like the benefits of those things that you were talking about, like the continual engagement of owners corporation having a quote unquote healthy building.
Yeah, there's, as I mentioned, the value of it. It's their biggest financial asset. The other thing is that insurance is a direct, I guess, measurable consequence of having a healthy building. Because if you look at the flip side, a poorly maintained building is going to be impacted by increased premiums, increased excesses, probably restricted cover, and then worst of all, no cover offered at all, which is not what you want
Yeah.
in the strata world at all.
I'm imagining like because I'm 100 years old and I'm like was playing video games when it was just like moving from the left to right hand screen. I'm
Yeah.
imagining the healthy building on that like the health bar where it just
Yes.
deteriorates. So we spoke about like a healthy building. What what would qualify as like maybe on the other end so we can just draw that context and picture
Yeah.
what what would an unhealthy building look like in your world?
Yeah, look, there's lots of different factors. A lot of them you do see in just one building. A lot there's all different. So, probably the biggest, well, the main thing would be a disengaged owners corporation. There's no funding. They've not been putting away funds for maintenance and repairs. They're not acting on professional advice in reports that they actually fund and commission or to get, to understand issues with their building, but then they've just put it in a drawer and not acted on it. And then deterioration of those issues obviously is going to occur over time. And then you get a very probably unsafe building as well. And that's a really important thing when we're looking at these buildings is, are the occupants safe?
Everything that you're saying, like, yeah, it's really interesting the way you're talking about maintenance is not the only factor because again that's not exactly where I thought this was going. I was getting ready to head down to Bunnings and just buy a whole bunch of stuff and start working on some paint, but it's so interesting to hear that it's it's deeper than that. It's more about relationships, communication, engagement. You've been, if I'm correct, you've been with CHU for nearly 15 years, is that right?
Yes, I have. December this year will be 15 years.
Yeah, so that's a in your experience, can you tell us how does typically a building move from a healthy building? What are the sequence of events that goes from, yeah, we've got like a healthy building, and then on that health scale that I mentioned earlier, how do we move down to something that maybe would come across your desk in sort of the unhealthy area? What
Yes.
what happens?
Yeah, what generally happens is there's been an owners corporation they've got a report. It's highlighted a bunch of issues, and costs add up, and it's the financial, the financial impact to have to get these issues rectified is generally the number one issue with unhealthy buildings. That's the start. There's the lack of consensus and alignment within an owners corporation that can happen to actually make a decision to move forward. That's a really, really big issue. Then you get disputes amongst the owners corporation. But then it flows on from these things. And then what happens is then it begins to affect the insurance, because as I mentioned earlier, an unhealthy building is generally subject to those higher premiums, that, higher excesses, restricted cover, or sometimes cover is only offered from an overseas insurer, which is absolutely astronomical premiums. And so the owners then have this double financial hit of having to pay really high premiums plus pay some money to get these repairs started as well. So that's probably one of the where it gets really bad.
In a couple of the other episodes of Strata in Conversation, we have sort of explored that. What does that look like when the premium goes up because of some circumstances that occurred within the health of that building? So it's really good to hear it from someone that works on these all the time. I guess what I wanted to ask is, what are the implications for the Strata community of a particular building or that committee when the health starts to deteriorate? What is that committee looking at? What can happen for them, or those owners that are buying their first unit and they're part of this Strata committee? What are the implications, and what happens when it starts to move down in that downward trend?
Yeah, the implications are probably very obviously a financial one. If people then are having to scramble to raise special levies to get funding or try and get a strata loan, it's probably a really big impact to people's lives. And then there's that disengagement. People are just not wanting to be involved in their own owners corporation, or really getting their building back up to scratch. And it can be a long road back to health. It happens. They can turn it around, but it's long and it is costly. So look, the cheapest anyone's going to pay to start repairing something is today. So don't sit on those reports, is all I can say.
And what I'm hearing about the healthy building thing is it's not only about maintenance. It's not something that's completely out of your control. There are things that we can do and have done. And I think you're going to talk about the trend, and it's not all, doom and woe, that things are, we are making a positive impact in this. And I'm really excited for you to share that with us shortly. But the biggest thing for me that I take away so far is it's not only about hammers and tiles and maintenance. It's more about, like, how is the committee operating, communicating, talking, and engaging effectively, right?
Yeah, it is. And you look at, why people buying into Strata is a good lifestyle. There are reasons people buy into it. So you want to create a lovely community vibe when you're living and owning in Strata. And that can be done, and it is done out there. But I think
Yeah.
it just takes this collective responsibility, being in an owners corporation, to make that happen.
You can give us an example of where there's been a building that's gone from, like, relatively healthy or like looking really good, and then it's moved into sort of that, like, it comes across your desk, or into that more unhealthy zone. Is there any examples or any statistics that you could give us around that?
Yes, so there are obviously a lot of buildings that I've looked at over the years, but a couple that have stuck out. We had a building, there was defects disclosed to us in 2019, lots of major defects. We wanted to continue supporting this O's corporation with insurance. That was in a time where there was really not a lot of market appetite out there. So CHU was leading the way and finding solutions for O's corporations where they had lots of defects. So we offered them insurance, on the basis that they had advised they were going to start these, commence the process to get rectification works done. We were getting, updates here and there on the progress. They were a bit patchy. There wasn't really anything that substantial. A few years into that process, we ended up getting our own building condition report done on that particular building. What came out of that was not very good. The building was reported to be in very poor condition. So we ended up, unfortunately for the owners, our position at that point in time was to decline renewal, and it was on the basis of the building was in very poor condition. There was unrectified defects over a long period of time. There was an undesirable claims history. Some of those claims actually related to the defects. And what ultimately ended up happening for this particular owners corporation was an overseas insurer was the only option they had at the time. And that premium was over $500,000 compared to our expiring premium at $90,000. This is a huge, huge impact. Insurance is a
Yeah.
massive impact in these situations, and you can see why it is critical to get the ball rolling on these issues as soon as possible, because it's only going to benefit them, right? It's only a
Yeah.
good thing to get action starting on these issues.
Yeah, right. I just wanted to jump in. You brought up the word defect, and just for everyone on, I know that we have a vast number of people on with like brokers, strata managers, partners. When you specifically talking about defects, can you talk to us about the different scope or the the differences that you see within that and what classifies as a defect in your world?
So defect is generally is something that's happened during the construction period. So poor workmanship, faulty workmanship, the materials can be defective. And so there's major defects and minor defects. So your major defects are things like structural issues, fire safety, waterproofing, which is the most prevalent one, which I think everyone in this industry probably knows about.
Yep.
They make up about 42% of the defects. The next most prevalent is fire safety, about 24%. The other major defects are ventilation and mechanical systems, and hydraulic defects, so the rainwater disposal um, defects. And then the minor defects are things like non-structural, so hairline cracking, and bubbling paint, sort of efflorescence, those sort of things that are more cosmetic.
Often I have seen that in sort of newer builds or when you speak to people about buying into a building or buying a home, not only with Strata, that talk about, oh, is that building a new building or are you buying an older building? And people have opinions around like, oh, this is better or that's better. In your experience, what are you seeing around the health of buildings in new versus old, and what information can you share about that particular topic?
So there was the 2025 Building Commission New South Wales report that came out that said there's actually been fewer defects reported in new builds built 2022 onwards. So coming from where we've been, which has been, there's a lot of issues with in construction and defects coming out. That's a really good positive statistic to be able to share. And then I think looking at, just adding on some more statistics here, I did a little bit of a stock take of the accounts that the National Specialty Risk Team has managed over the last financial year, and the average year bill was mid-90s. Not new. They're not these brand new ones. It is more of the older buildings, and that to me comes down to the maintenance, the lack of maintenance or inaction.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think, that's such a hot topic around like which type of building should I get into? And like I love hearing from your perspective and those statistics that talk about, oh, okay, it's not all, woe and doom and gloom. There's like we are doing things in the
Yeah.
industry to ensure that there are fewer defects being reported and being noticed that we're seeing. What do you attribute that to, and what is the industry and what has the industry done to ensure that we are having healthier buildings across the board as you've just mentioned in the statistics?
I think that there was obviously in New South Wales, there was the Building Commission office that was started. David Chandler is my hero. So he started that, and he's done a lot of good work there, with in the new development space, in really capturing defects even before the building's finished. He'll go on and issue, or he's not there anymore, but when he was there and what they're still doing now, they issue prohibition orders and stop work orders, and then on the newer builds where it's finished and it's been handed over to the owners corporation, if there are defects identified, the owners corporation can get a building work rectification order issued to the developer to rectify the defects they're responsible for. So that's really positive that's come out in the New South Wales space.
Taking sort of that case study around what's happening where we live, what do you predict or what do you see as moving into the future for building health and that term healthy buildings? And it seems, as you mentioned, and by the statistics, we're tracking in the right directions as it means to healthy buildings. What do you see in the future for the term healthy buildings and the appeal for communal living and strata buildings moving forward over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think education is probably the biggest thing that will help strata buildings be healthy. And that is just so important. I think there's people underestimate the responsibility of owning in strata and what it means. And it is a great lifestyle. It's absolutely such a good option for property ownership in Australia. Um, and I think just educating from even before they bought, while they're buying it, and then flowing into being an owner. What does it mean? What can I do as an owner to add to this community of people that have collective ownership of this building and have it running really well and have the value growing? And so I think education is just going to get better, and there'll be more people who are really aware of what it means to be a strata owner.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And we're going to get the team to throw up an infographic on the screen right now that we pulled from a couple of episodes ago, Claire. I don't know if you watched it, the Kim episode, where she was talking about the percentage of people that will be living in strata in the next 5 or 10 years. And that number is growing and growing. And, with it being higher and higher, I think you're exactly correct around the need for a greater education around what are the absolute positives about strata and communal living, but also that responsibility that sits there in how to ensure and maintain, like we maintain the health of our own bodies, how do we maintain the health of these buildings? That's why I found it such a funny term, because I'd never heard it phrased like that, and I love it so much. So, so take away what you want from the infographic that you can see on the screen. But thanks, Claire, for sort of highlighting what you're going to see as for strata buildings and what's important moving to the future. And for me, that's a really good segue to my next question, which is the responsibility and the ownership piece. And now we've had a building that's come and landed across your desk, let's say hypothetically. Whose responsibility is it to
Well,
take that situation and turn it around? Talk us through that scenario.
so ultimately, it's the owner's corporations, the owner's responsibility. And we understand that not everyone has time, or they might not be aware of what is required to turn it around. And so we can help as insurers only from our end, but there's the great strata managers, the great strata brokers out there. They're really there to help guide owners in these situations and show them the benefits of how good this is going to be to turn this building around, to get it back into that healthy green zone, and show the benefits. Use insurance as one of those benefits. Is that the premium's going to go down. You will get better options with your insurance. You'll get better excess structures with your insurance.
Yeah.
And so educating on putting more money into the building and the maintenance and having to put in less money into the insurance is a big tick.
Yeah, right. In the cases that you've seen, can you identify a particular trigger or turning point where an owner's corporation or an owner themselves or something turns from like disengaged to, oh, now I'm engaged? Like, how does that happen? What are you seeing as that flipping point for people to go, okay, yeah, this is the turning point for us?
Yeah, it probably is the insurance shock. If
Okay.
there's been, potentially, years of just run of the mill premiums. There's nothing been, no massive hikes or increases, but suddenly the insurer gets a report and it's not great, and the exposure has increased because of this. It needs to the premium does get impacted. Then it'll be the premium increase. There could be a shorter term policy. They might look at the 12 months. So there are a shorter timeline to, get some action moving, or it could be a decline. It could be a declined insurance situation. So while insurance shouldn't be the driver to start acting on building on maintenance and defects, it often is the driver.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm asking you for the reality. I'm not asking for
Yeah, and
the
that
blue
is
sky. That's great. I appreciate the candor and honesty. So what I want to ask you now is, because we have a lot of strata managers and brokers listening and watching right now, is what are some tactics that they can do in their roles here to turn someone from disengaged to highly engaged without it being from a piece of paper with a high number on it? What can you do? What are the tactics you would recommend on a daily basis that can sort of help these people on the call now?
Yeah, I think explaining the why. So stop, possibly stop leading with the compliance angle and lead with the value and why, yes, a report says they need to do X, Y, and Z, but tell them what it's protecting. Tell them that it's going to mean the building's safe. The value of the building will grow if they keep the repairs and maintenance up to date, keep their sinking fund and admin funds in a healthy balance.
While you were talking, I was thinking about something that in one of my previous episodes, someone was talking about the concept of proactive maintenance, and like you had referred to as the how do we say, the not shock. I just don't want to use that term. The the sudden realization of, like, this is where the current health of my building is, and as such, this is the fees that are attached to that. Rather having this like proactive maintenance schedule, and that is a really positive way to keep people engaged in the health of their building, in addition to not only the physical maintenance, but the engagement, the relationships, the open line of communication between owners, corporations, and that sort of, I was thinking about that while you were explaining what people could do. Am I on the right track there?
Yes, you are. And it's yeah, the health of the building. I'm sorry, yeah, you just made me have a think about when we're looking at a building, when we're assessing it for an underwriting purposes, we're looking at two things.
Yeah.
So the health of the building is obviously the physical building, but also the owner's corporation and their behaviour and engagement and attitude. And it's probably that second part, I think, might
Wow.
be misunderstood by a lot of people out there, and that is a massive decision making factor for us in when we're assessing a building for insurance, because what we want to see is that action, is that really good maintenance programs in place, and
Yeah.
meetings being attended, and good decisions being made. And when we're seeing that, if we might ask for meeting minutes so we can understand the thought process and what decisions are being made and what is being discussed. And they're a really good indicator of all of those things. And so that helps us understand, what's going on with a particular owner's corporation, to see what decisions are being made in terms of the health of the building.
And so let's talk about timelines. So I asked you, I said, thank you so much for the honesty before. So give everyone on the call a realistic understanding of a timeline. Something comes across Claire's desk where we're in there, sort of the red of the unhealthy zone. What are some realistic timelines that you've seen over your career that we can help owners corporations move from that status of a building into a healthy status, that green status? I love how you call it the green status, where things are humming along, and we're in that proactive zone, everyone's talking and engaged, that highly engaged state. What are we talking from a timeline perspective?
So it really depends on the size of the building.
Yep.
Obviously, something smaller, if you're looking at like a 4, 2, 4, 6 lot building, it
Yeah.
can be done quickly. There's obviously less people to need to coordinate to make decisions
Yes.
and that sort of thing. If you're looking at the bigger properties, 100+ lots, it can take years. It can take a really long time, and we understand that. There's a lot of different people that need to be involved. There might be, but obviously there is this project manager that is going to help coordinate some things. Quite often there's project managers, and then there's the different disciplines of, all the repairers and all of it. There's just so many people involved. And then there's sometimes is the need to relocate the residents. And that can all take time. So it does depend. I have a case study to share on. It was a building that wasn't small. I can't remember the exact size,
Yeah.
but we it was a policy we had. They disclosed defects to us in 2021. Again,
Okay.
major issues. It was structural waterproofing, fire safety. We supported them through that process with insurance. By mid 2023, they had all the fire safety defects rectified. So at that point in time, the renewal, we offered a 15% premium reduction. By end of 2024, all the other defects had been fixed. And so we were able to apply another reduction at 50%. And what this meant for
Wow.
this particular owners corporation was that their base premium is six figures. So it's up there, it's expensive. And so having these sorts of reductions is a massive saving, and they can put that back into the building. And then it also meant that they had more viable insurance options. So they weren't just stuck paying high premiums and only one
Yeah.
option. They
Yeah.
had, I guess, negotiating power. They could market it around and get different options for their insurance.
So is that something in your role? Like, so I know we've spoken a lot about where you sit on that health scale and the build type of buildings that you look at.
Yeah.
But when you're engaged, can you talk to us about the process that you and your team come in, look at, and the support that you offer? I love how you said, we looked at those defects and recommended this, and then we were able to do this with their insurance premium. Talk to us about what it takes for a building to get to your desk and what you see and the strategies that you and your team take to move a building from unhealthy into that green zone.
It's generally been years of inaction. That's generally how it lands in the team. And it could be due to, might be claims that are all related to maintenance related issues that just haven't been actioned. So we do a big deep dive into the account. We work out the gaps of information, and then we work with the broker or strata manager on the account, and I'm guide into we want to try and guide it and steer it in the right direction,
Yeah.
while providing insurance and finding a solution. That's the aim. Declining is not our first option. Absolutely not. There might be very, very rare instances where it is, and I do have a story actually.
Yeah.
I'll get to that in a
Please
minute.
tell. Yeah.
Yeah, I have but as I was saying, declining is not our first option. We will try to work out a solution where possible, and that is satisfying to me. That I really enjoy being able to have that, have that authority to go, right. I'm understanding what the issues are, and but we can still provide an insurance solution to this owners corporation, to help support them get things started or progress through these issues. But on the decline, talk, there was an account. Look, there are some accounts that have just stuck in my mind, and they will forever. But this
Yeah.
particular one, and this really highlights why acting on professional advice and reports is really important. We had an account where an owners corporation, they obtained a structural engineer's report in December 2022, outlined a lot of issues, a lot of structural problems throughout the building in the basement. One of the recommendations was to immediately prop a section of the basement ceiling, and they didn't do that. And fast forward 18 months, so mid 2024, they engaged a different structural engineer to go out and do an inspection and provide a report. That engineer corroborated all the same findings in the initial one and had all the same recommendations, and peppered throughout the report was immediate this, immediate that. It was, there was action that needed to be taken, including propping the basement, and they didn't do it still. And 6 months after that, so it was January 2025, a claim was lodged on the policy for loss of rent. And when I looked into that claim, the reason loss of rent was being claimed was that a resident in this building had woken to the audible sound of cracking in the middle of the night, and a crack in this apartment formed and it widened over the next 24 hours, and the building was forced to evacuate. Now, that, it didn't collapse, thankfully, but, that just, that situation is eerily similar to the Miami tragedy that occurred in 2021 at the Champlain Towers building, where
Yeah.
there was a partial collapse due to years of unrectified defects, and they could have been completely prevented.
I love how you had said the current state where we are, and that things are looking up the statistic you shared earlier around, that we are seeing more and more healthy buildings, and we're working toward, with the industry as a whole, ensuring that we're doing what we can to support owners corporations to, provide everyone with the healthiest building possible and the education that sits behind that. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. It really is the number. Oh, yeah. I'll sing it from the rooftops. It really is.
Get ready, do your vocal warm-ups now, because I'm going to give you your moment right now to sing from the rooftops. We have, as you know, a number of people on this call listening to you right now. I'm going to mute myself or go on the background or do whatever. I want you to look straight down the barrel of that camera. If you could give the people on the call now advice on maybe the way that they might adjust the way they're speaking to owners corporations in their calls that they're having with them tomorrow, or the meetings they're about to attend next week, what is one thing that you would ask or request everyone on the call now in the way that they're having that communication or potential education with owners corporations based on this call today? Go for it.
Educate where possible, and all of it, not just the big stuff, the little stuff. What does it mean to be in a committee? What is an AGM? What are my legacies going towards? Everything. What does it mean for the insurance of my building if I don't do this particular repair? Explain, I think, and it needs to be repeated. Education is the most important thing. It's not going to be is.
I'm not sure I can top that. There is a reason, as I said at the top of the conversation, that I asked you to join us. I have a feeling that if I let you go for another 2 hours, that we could be sitting here and I'd be listening to stories about particular buildings and the way that your team has intervened and we've brought back buildings back to health. But we are on a time crunch. But as I mentioned, I know that you live and breathe this stuff, and that has absolutely come through in our conversation today. So not only has it come through today for me on this call, but there is a reason that we have you listed in the Insurance Business Global 100 list for both 2025 and 2026. So, Claire, not only am I saying thank you for your time today, but I want to say a huge congratulations on that honor. You must be so proud to be included in such a list.
Thank you. I am. I am very proud. It was great. So thank you.
As I said, it's not just about this conversation. I see the way that you talk and the passion that you have for this particular topic every day in the office. And I couldn't think of anyone, who could share their knowledge more on this particular topic than you. So thanks so much for taking the time. How did you find today's conversation for you?
Great. Loved it. As you said, I could talk about it for another 2 hours. So it's great. I'm always happy to share whatever knowledge I can. So I was really happy to be here today.
I promise to you, we will have you back in a future episode of Strata in Conversation, and we'll ask you to dig even deeper into your storybook
Yes.
library that you have for us. I have no doubt that you have some amazing stories to share with us. But now let me turn my attention to you guys. Thank you so much to everyone who's taken the time to log on to this month's episode of Strata in Conversation. I hope you found it informative as much as I did, engaging, entertaining, and please join us next month for our next episode of Strata in Conversation. It's actually a I don't want to say too much about it just yet, but it's actually a really exciting one that I'm really looking forward to. More story-based, more conversational, and I think you'll get a lot out of that as well. Just a reminder that the CPD points will be allocated to you. Our team is on top of that, so keep your eye on your email inbox for that. That is coming. And thank you for everyone that's populated questions, comments, queries into the chat. We love to see that engagement through these episodes, and that poll that we did last month around what are some of the issues that you want us to tackle in this series. That also helps us in the architecture of how we build this series out for you. So continue to pop those suggestions. We love this. We don't like this. We love the intro. We don't like that. All of those types of things. Let us know. We're here to make this better and better each and every month. Claire, thank you so much. Every one of you, thank you so much. My name's Steve, and we'll see you on the next episode of Strata in Conversation.